Sonic Battle released in 2003 for the Game Boy Advance and only the Game Boy Advance. And we'll talk about pretty much later, now, why that's a problem. And of course, THQ was the publisher. Now, I talked about this in my Sonic Advance videos, but the fact that THQ publishes games means that they can never be re-released in America because of some weird copyright laws because of that. The game mostly relies on the story and some of the gameplay, which we'll get into right now, because I guess I'm going to do this a little differently. I usually talk about the game as a whole sometimes, but this time we're going to talk about the gameplay, and then we're going to talk about the story. Alright, here is the only new character introduced in this game. Now there's another technically characters, but they're directly based off other characters, including this one right here, Emerald. Unfortunately, I'll talk about him a lot more when we get to the story. However, there is no background notes on this game, unfortunately, which is a shame because there's some interesting things, so I'd like to know what the ideas were behind. But yeah, this is Emerald. You're going to see a little bit more of him in this franchise. Kind of. And we'll get to that when we get to that. Overall, he's pretty interesting design, and I can't really talk more about him until we get to the story. Sonic Battle is kind of a weird game to start out with. In fact, I've actually had this game for a while, but it took me till, well, like last week to beat this game. It took me a while to record this, by the way. And the reason why is that because of the platform this was released on, it does not control very well unless you're using a full-on controller, which, if you didn't know anything about this, is released for the Game Boy Advance, and they basically want you to use the shoulder buttons, which is fine on the original Game Boy Advance model. However, that console had a problem with a lack of backlit screen. Fortunately, I don't have a modded version of that console to do that. The GBA SP's shoulder buttons are incredibly small, and in fact, because of that, the only way to play multiplayer is if somebody else with a link cable on another console, and I'm not even sure if you can even connect it without them having the same exact copy of the game, which is a big shame in my opinion, because I bet this game will be pretty fun with multiple players. Even though I kind of like the fact that they had this unique pixel art style, which has aged pretty well. I honestly, when I was playing, I kind of wish this was a console game. At least it was ported, so we can actually experience this game to the best of its ability. But unfortunately, the way it is, we're just kind of stuck emulating it or buying it firsthand, because like I said, this game's never released because of THQ. Essentially what that means is that every time you're playing the game, your character can do a special move. Not really though. But yeah, you can run away, and it depends on the character, because each one of their defend slash heal is a lot worse. Like Cream's is broken, but Sonic's version of it is terrible, which doesn't even heal or barely charge up your meter. And I think you can get hit charged up by also getting hit, but I'm not too sure on that. Basically, what that can do is once you get it all the way up, you can press your R button, which is your special move, which you can do in the air or on the ground, depending which one you choose. And if it lands a hit without the computer blocking it, it one-hit KOs them, which is pretty useful since a lot of these fights take a while, because most of the time you have to take them out like 10 times, and you have to do that twice most of the time, which is pretty beat. The cool thing about this game is that it kind of has a Smash Bros. Feel, where you can have 4 characters on screen to have a fight, and either they are working with you or they're working against you. And that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, when it comes to fights, there isn't a whole lot of variety. There's a good amount of characters in this game, not a whole lot. But because of the way the story mode works, even though the characters are actively aggressive against each other, which is the reason why they're always fighting each other, you're still going to end up fighting most of these Gamma guys and Emerald copies. Definitely the best part of the game is the character of Emerald, because he is very unique. He's a fighting robot that learns from its opponents, meaning that every ability you can give to the character is something from another character, and you can get them as you go through the game, kind of upgrading it like an RPG, as I said before. Essentially, Emerald starts off pretty terrible. Even as a character, he doesn't have much going on. He has kind of an infant until he gets more stuff, making him more and more powerful and more sentient. He's a very interesting character because of that, and you can really make him a really fun and broken character with all the unique moves. Unfortunately, the beginning game, he is incredibly weak, and you have to do some fights that are really hard to do. Some of the Knuckles early fights are terrible because Emerald has no abilities, and fortunately his slots for actually even the abilities you do have are very limited, and you have to do repetitive fights if you want to upgrade them, unless you're just going out the main game. So yeah, that part takes a while, but once you do get them up there, you can use some of the best abilities. You can use Rouge's broken air attacks, or even some Cream's broken healing ability, and it's pretty fun. Tails is a little weird. He has a kind of a fly ability, but not really. Rouge's flying feels more like what Tails usually does. And yeah, he's a little floaty. He has gadgets he can use. He begins to use gadgets, as well as tail attacks. For the most time, you're just going to be using this tail attack because it's broken. Knuckles is probably the worst character in the game. He's a little slower, and a lot of his moves aren't that great at hitting. They apparently are supposed to hit hard, but the connection's hard, and his special abilities are just throwing rocks and digging, which aren't that great of moves, and it feels like every computer knows how to block it. The computers are pretty good at blocking, at least compared to you are. You're not going to be as good as them. And yeah, that's a little bit of a problem with Knuckles over here. Rouge the Bat is very broken. Her air attack, it can just be comboed forever, essentially, and it's pretty hard for anyone else to hit her because of her flight ability. And yeah, making her easily one of the best characters in the game. We're not even use her specials that much because her just regular attacks are that good. I think that Amy is also a pretty good character in the game. She has a multi-hit hammer attack, which can be used very well, as well as a tornado hammer that are pretty good attacks, I'll be honest. Her special abilities are pretty great. Multi-hit attacks are pretty good, which can get good range in characters, and Amy has a good balance of it. She has lower defenses than other characters in the game, but her attacks make up for her abysmal defenses. And while unfortunately you don't get to play as Cream that much because she's too scared in her own storyline to do a lot of fighting, but when you get to do play as her attacks are pretty broken. She uses Cheese the Chow, obviously, like she did in Sonic Advance 2, and basically their attacks move incredibly fast, and Cream can move around. The story is about basically Sonic and friends find this robot that they call Emerald. Emerald is a Gizoid. It's an ancient robot made for basically total destruction and ultimate life, if you will. Apparently, Professor Gerald found it a long time ago, and Eggman discovered it again. He thinks it's useless, so he throws it on a beach. But unfortunately for us, Eggman, Sonic finds him. Sonic's like, "I'm gonna help you out, guy. I know you don't talk a lot, but I guess you trust robots all of a sudden." Most of them are, and that character is Shadow the Hedgehog. And Shadow's specials and attacks are just basically, he's fast and powerful, so he's the best of both worlds. He makes Sonic look like a chump in this game. He also has the most broken air dash attack. If you need to avoid an enemy, it is incredibly fast, can be spammed. Basically, use Chaos Control, and it's just really broken. Shadow is the best character in the game. Maybe Cream's better, but he has better defenses, and other than his healing ability not being as good, nowhere near as good as Cream's, all his other stuff is it's great. Oh yeah, while the characters are pretty good, like I mentioned, there's a big problem, and that problem being, well, once you find a good maneuver, you'll just spam it the entire game. And that's just kind of a problem with Sonic Battle. It's a good game, but yeah. Let's talk about what a lot of the other characters, including Rouge and Shadow, also want this robot. Sonic's like, "You can't have my new buddy," and they fight over it because that's Sonic Battle. And Sonic takes Emerald to Tails' lab to give him a name, and they're like, "The only way we can help this robot out is by beating the crap out of it." I'm not joking, that's really what they do. They also come across a Gamma, but it's not Gamma, it's called Chaos Gamma. Apparently, Eggman decides he's going to mass-produce the robot who betrayed him. Maybe he thought he died heroically, but yeah, Eggman, I don't think he ever knew that Gamma betrayed him, but yeah, essentially throughout the game, you'll find a bunch of these. Essentially, what they discover is that if they give him Chaos Emeralds, Emerald will be more evolved. In a way, I guess, I don't know why they decided they wanted to do this, to be honest. I know Emerald, they're just trying to figure out what this guy is. They eventually bond with this character. But at the same time, like, they know how powerful Chaos Emeralds are, and I don't know why they think. They also decide to bring Emerald to Knuckles to see what he thinks about it. But Knuckles is like, "I'm gonna fight you guys," because Knuckles is he's very angry in this game. Also, I'm pretty sure in Angel Island, just who happens to be near where they are. So there's actually a whole town these characters live in. Tails has his own house shaped like his own head. Rouge has her own club. After that, you'll begin the Tails storyline. Tails is willing to do a whole lot. He tries to get in a building, but he can't. He needs Rouge's help, and they fight. Tails fights other things, and the story isn't that great, but it is fun. Like, all the characters fight each other, but then, like Rouge, "I don't like you," but Rouge's like, "I'll help you out," but now I want to take the robot back, but hey, I'll help you out. It's kind of like the whole game, all the characters. These characters really need to work on their communication. Anyway, Rouge's story is next. She takes over Emerald as her new guardian. She's like, "I'm gonna train this robot to be the best in how to steal gems," because, you know, Rouge working for the government, she's still a thief. And this pisses off Amy, because Amy thinks that it belongs to her now, because he thinks that Emerald is Sonic's kid, or trying to be Sonic's kid. Also, every character here has voice lines, kind of. They say little things, but it's cool because it's the adventure voices, which... At this point, Emerald's gotten Chaos Emeralds, and he's gotten more evolved, and he can speak. He's copying dialect from other characters. So he'll say stuff like Sonic, and when he's with Knuckles, which is the next storyline, he'll start speaking like Knuckles and calling everyone like, "You suck." Knuckles basically comes over because he has a realization that he needs to train this robot to be an old. She takes Emerald to her apartment to help her train, and basically meaning that she's beating up her quote-unquote child, she calls him. And we get to see what Amy's house looks like, and Amy's house is kinda crazy. You would think it'd be full of Sonic, and there is a Sonic heart on it, but the rest of her house is decorated. After Knuckles trains Emerald to be an ultimate warrior and succeeds, Amy takes over. Is like, "Alright, Emerald, I'm your mom, so you gotta help mom lose weight," so Sonic want to date her. I don't know. Anyway, following this, we get Cream's story where they get kidnapped by Eggman, who wants Emerald back because, you know, he's an ultimate fighting weapon that you probably shouldn't have thrown out. Yeah, this section of the game is kind of annoying, so you're going to fight a barrage of enemies. Sometimes it's not even clear which way you're supposed to go, because you feel like fighting the same fights over and over again. There's also a problem in the Knuckles storyline. It had a similar thing, where you're fighting in a casino area, and it feels like you're fighting the same fights over and over again. This game has a bit of a problem with repetition, in my opinion, especially since finally, Cream and Emerald escape, and they have a nice little bond. Of course, in order to fill that bond, Cream has to beat the crap out of Emerald, because, as we all know, in our way to train this robot, they got to beat it. The last story is Shadow. Now, this is the most interesting one, because we kind of know about these characters already. They've kind of been established. We get to see what they're like in their regular lives, which is kind of why I like this game. Basically what they're like. But Shadow, we don't really know a whole lot. After all, in Sonic Heroes, he just comes back from the dead. It's like, you don't remember anything. Well, in this game, he remembers everything. My theory is that they probably didn't know what was going on in Sonic Heroes. They just knew that Shadow's coming back, so put him in the game, because they wrote him like he knows his memories about Professor Gerald and Maria. Here, he's skeptical about Emerald, because Emerald's also considered ultimate life form, and it says that it sucks being that way, and he wishes he was dead. That's not I'm joking, that's what he says in the game. But he learns after all this. The final story stars Emerald himself, even though we've been playing as him throughout the entire game. And essentially what he's doing here is that he's got to stop Eggman and his new Death Egg that he just randomly popped. So for some reason, they decided to send Emerald out into space by himself to fight Eggman, who's in this red Eggmobile, which kind of looks weird. But there's also this optional fight with Chaos, the god of destruction. Yeah, Chaos is dead, but apparently he's just here. This is how you unlock him if you want to play him in the multiplayer and storyline modes. Not storyline, we're in story. It's kind of like a Super Smash Bros. Classic mode, part of this game. But it turns out that's what Eggman wanted all along, as he reverts Emerald back to his original state as an ultimate weapon of destruction. His whole CPU gets reset, and now Sonic has to defeat him. I guess you probably shouldn't have sent him after Eggman. After fighting Emerald as Sonic, Emerald's dying, and he gets regained some of his memories, and he says, "Thank you for giving me a full life, even though it's always supposedly supposed to be a weapon of destruction." And I like how in the end, Emerald still calls Amy mom. That's kind of hilarious, but you know. It's kind of hard to tell you how it feels to play this game. The story is best experienced by the players, and it's mostly little character moments and kind of growth, and you get to see what the Sonic characters are like in more of an average life. Eggman isn't that big a threat in this game as compared to other games until the very end, where he builds another Death Egg, which really isn't explained that well, but whatever. It's cool to see Emerald. You get to play as him, you get to evolve him, and you get to see him evolve. So having to defeat him at the end is actually kind of bittersweet. They actually did a very good job with that aspect of the game, and it's one of those that you gotta play the game for yourself. And I think if you're a Sonic fan, you want to see these characters, especially in this era. I definitely see this is definitely a better one to do it with. Even though the gameplay is a little repetitive, I do actually recommend this game. And if this sounds interesting to you, then I would recommend pulling. One last thing I'd like to add before we get into the end of this video is that there is a couple of environments in this game. There's not a whole lot of stages, and most of them basically play the same. They're mostly just set dressing. You got a casino area, you got a beach level, you got a city area, you got an industrial level. I'm also sorry about the footage. It is buffering, which is never good, but at least you can still hear me, and that's the most important thing in the world. You get an idea what this game is like. The internet sucks right now. I can't really... Now, there is mini-games, however, because they are multiplayer only, and getting that to set up is basically impossible in this day and age. Not impossible, but it's something that I'm not going to be able to do. There's a couple ones that you can unlock by playing the main game. But overall, there's not much to it. There's a classic style mode as well in a multiplayer battle, so you can play by yourself or a training mode. all sorts of neat little features. This game is one of those games where I definitely really need to have it be on a console. And re-release could have fixed that a lot, but in my opinion, this really... Yeah, but like I said, Sonic Battle is a good game. In fact, I think it's a pretty underrated game. While some of the footage may be a little sloppy, as I mentioned before why that is, the story is unique for Sonic. It's kind of between RPG-esque, which you don't really see in Sonic, the franchise works very well in that style. Unfortunately, but like I said, this game is definitely worth trying, and I kind of wish that maybe Sega will return to this fighting Sonic thing more. Again, Sonic Battle did a good job, but I imagine with maybe some... Oh, here's the box art, by the way. I have a little bit of box art stuff to talk about here, because there's slightly different ones in English and Japanese. The box art is very stylized, with this cool art style that looks really good. They unfortunately just don't use this art style ever again, even though I think it looks pretty rad. It's Sonic's kicking Shadow in the head, and Shadow's about to, I guess, shove his hand down Sonic's mouth, who knows. The logo is interesting because they got this weird fire Sonic that it just... Here is the Japanese art. Because the Game Boy Advance boxes are slightly different. It's slightly differently shaped. You know, we have most of the same artwork. It's kind of a weird comic style, which is okay. It's not bad, but I think the way it's posed in the North American one looks better. Sonic Battle is a game that you're going to have a little harder time trying to find if you want it physically. I've had mine for a while, but as you can see, it's a lose $36 if you want the on original hardware. As I mentioned in this video already multiple times, I do not think this is the best way to play is on original hardware, because unless you have a modded GBA, the regular one, because the other models GBA just aren't as good at the L and R button placements. And yeah, this is a box game, so the complete price is always going to be higher. This game's actually gone up a pretty bit. It used to not be that expensive, but yeah, like I said, it's not been released, so it makes this game going to be one of those that goes higher and higher. So it's up to you if you want to buy it. But like I said, well, unless you're collecting it related to GBA, I own into GBA, then there's no reason to really pick this up unless you really want to play original hardware. Because like I said, it plays better on emulation. This was also apparently included in the PAL regions in the 2 games in 1 with Sonic Advance, which is pretty interesting. It looks like it's cheaper, but for me, I'm not going to be able to get this. It's the PAL, and it's probably more rare, just to have less sales. So I bet it's actually more expensive than Sonic Battle. It just so happens that the way it's placed, it's one of those things. You'll see this a lot, where there's a game that's probably more expensive, it's more rare, you get less sell prices. In conclusion, I think I said enough about this game. Is it a 7 out of 10 or a B tier? Is that right? Yeah, that sounds about right for me. I feel like the ranking is right for Longs. I think it raises 7 out of 10, but I think the other games near are 8 out of 10, possibly. So I guess it'd be ranked lower, but at the same time, that's where I put it on the tier list. Yeah, I don't really know. I'm having a problem here. I was like, oh yeah, put it there, and then wait, so is it 7 out of 10 being there? It is an 8 out of 10 game. Yeah, at this point, this is the part where you get to see the tier list, and I just talk and rant about certain things, so it doesn't really matter if I go off script and stuff here, because, you know, at this point, you can just text off the video. But thank you for watching. Sonic Class goes there. That's where I felt it should go, and then I realized that, wait, he's not 8 out of 10, he's 8 out of 10, he's 7 out of 10. I rated a 7 out of 10 from backlogged. He kind of is a 7 out of 10, but at the same time, 8 out of 10. But it belongs there. I don't know. It feels like it belongs right there. It's a very unique game. As I said before, I recommend it if you're any of this looks interesting to you. Like I said, it's hard to come by nowadays, and Sega's never released it, which sucks because of the THQ crap. Next time, we're going to another GBA game. Another GBA game that you might even know about. Thanks for watching, and subscribe, like, comment, all that crap. And bye-bye. See you later.